Welcome to a journey into a world of black and white, or a world of ice and ocean, a world of instinct and survival. We are about to explore the story of a bird that is at once comical and majestic, awkward and graceful, a creature that embodies the very essence of endurance. This is the story of the penguin. When we picture them, we see a formal procession of tuxedo-clad figures, waddling with a charming clumsiness across a vast, frozen landscape. But to see them only on land is to see but half the story, the less remarkable half. For the true genius of the penguin is revealed only when it leaves the solid world behind. With a toboggan slide on its belly, or a determined dive from an ice shelf, it enters its true kingdom, the water. Here, the waddling clown becomes a torpedo of flesh and feather, a master of hydrodynamic flight. Its wings, useless for the air, become powerful, paddle-like flippers, propelling it through the frigid depths with a speed and agility that land-bound observers could scarcely imagine. They do not swim, they fly underwater. This is the story of that incredible transformation, a story of how a line of birds gave up the sky to conquer the sea. It's a tale that stretches across millions of years, from a world recovering from cataclysm to the challenges of our modern age. As we embark on this global journey, following these remarkable birds from the frozen heart of Antarctica to the sun-baked rocks of the Equator, we'd love to get a sense of our own global community listening to this story. In the comments section, please take a moment to write where you are listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. It's always fascinating to see how a single story can connect us all, from midnight in Melbourne to midday in Manitoba. And if you enjoy these explorations into the natural world, please be sure to subscribe to the channel so you'll be the first to know when our next story begins. The very name penguin is a curious quirk of history, a second-hand label that originally belonged to another bird entirely. To unravel this, we must sail back in time to the wind-battered shores of the North Atlantic, long before European explorers ventured deep into the southern hemisphere. Here lived a magnificent, flightless seabird known as the great auk. Standing nearly a meter tall with a black back and a pristine white belly, it was the Northern Hemisphere's ecological equivalent of the large penguins we know today. Welsh sailors, familiar with this bird, are thought to have called it Pen Gwyn, meaning whitehead, a name possibly referencing the prominent white patches near its eyes. For centuries, the great auk was a fixture of the cold northern oceans, but its flightlessness, which made it so successful in the water, made it tragically vulnerable on its breeding grounds. By the mid-19th century, hunted relentlessly for its meat, eggs, and feathers, the great auk was driven to extinction. The last known pair was killed on the island of Eldey, off the coast of Iceland, in 1844, and with them, the original bearer of the name vanished from the earth. So how did the name make the great leap from a lost northern bird to an entire family of southern ones? When European mariners, men like Ferdinand Magellan and his crew, rounded the tip of South America for the first time, they encountered birds that were startlingly familiar, yet utterly new. These southern creatures, which we now know as Magellanic penguins, were also flightless, black and white, and masters of the sea. Seeing a bird that so closely mirrored the great auk of their home waters, they applied the name they already knew. The label stuck. An alternative theory suggests the name derives not from Welsh, but from the Latin word pinguis, meaning fat or oil, a direct and pragmatic reference to the bird's thick, insulating layer of blubber, which was a valuable commodity for sailors. Whichever origin story is true, the name itself tells a tale of discovery, of mistaken identity, and of the ghost of a long extinct bird that lives on in the name of its southern counterparts. But what truly defines a penguin, beyond its borrowed name? Scientifically, all living penguins belong to a single family, Spheniscidae, and their own exclusive order, Spheniciformes. They are a unique and ancient lineage of aquatic, flightless birds, and every aspect of their biology is a testament to their absolute commitment to a life in the ocean. The decision to abandon aerial flight was the single most important evolutionary step their ancestors took. On the surface, it seems like a sacrifice, a loss of the freedom of the skies that defines most birds. But in reality, it was a trade-off of profound consequence. By giving up the energetic demands of aerial flight, their bodies were liberated to become denser, heavier, and more powerful, perfectly optimized for a different kind of flight. Their bones, unlike the hollow, lightweight bones of flying birds, are solid and dense, providing the necessary ballast to dive deep beneath the waves. Their wings evolved into stiff, flattened flippers. The joints of the elbow and wrist became fused, creating a rigid and powerful paddle that can generate incredible thrust, allowing them to fly through the dense medium of water with the same up and down motion that their ancestors once used in the air. Their iconic Tuxedo is far more than a stylistic quirk. It's a sophisticated form of camouflage known as countershading. The dark, black back, when viewed from above by a predator, like a leopard seal or an orca, blends in with the dark, murky depths of the ocean below. Conversely, their brilliant white belly, when seen from below by a predator or by their own prey, merges seamlessly with the bright, sunlit surface of the water. This simple, elegant pattern makes them remarkably difficult to spot in their primary hunting ground, giving them a critical edge in the life and death game of hide and seek that plays out constantly beneath the waves. Their entire body is a masterpiece of hydrodynamics. Its smooth, tapered, torpedo-like shape minimizes drag, allowing them to slice through the water with exceptional efficiency. Their feet and short tail act as a rudder, providing fine-tuned steering as they chase after fish, krill, and squid with breathtaking speed and agility. The diversity within this single family is astonishing, a clear illustration of how this basic body plan has been adapted to a wide array of environments across the southern hemisphere. At one end of the spectrum stands the magnificent emperor penguin, Aptenodytes forsteri. It is the tallest and heaviest of all penguins, a true giant of the family, standing up to 1.3 meters, or over 4 feet, tall and weighing as much as a small child. Its very existence is a defiant statement against the most inhospitable environment on the planet. They breed during the crushing darkness and unimaginable cold of the Antarctic winter, where temperatures can plummet to minus 60 degrees Celsius. The male emperor famously endures this brutal season alone, balancing a single precious egg on his feet for 2 months, huddled with thousands of other males in a tightly packed mass to share warmth, all while fasting and losing nearly half his body weight. Its sheer size is an adaptation to this cold. Its large body has a smaller surface area to volume ratio, which helps to conserve vital heat. Its regal posture and golden yellow flashes on its neck and head only add to its majestic aura. At the other extreme, we find the enchanting little blue penguin, Eudyptula minor, also known as the fairy penguin. Native to the coastlines of southern Australia and New Zealand, this is the smallest of all penguin species, standing just over 30 centimeters, or about 1 foot, tall and weighing only around 1 kilogram. It is a miniature marvel. Instead of the classic stark black, its plumage is a beautiful slate blue or indigo, which gives it its name. Unlike the emperor, which is born of ice and blizzards, the little blue lives a temperate life, nesting in burrows along sandy or rocky shores, often under vegetation. At dusk, they gather in groups offshore before making their way up the beach in what is famously known as the Penguin Parade, a beloved spectacle for observers in places like Phillip Island in Australia. The dramatic contrast between the colossal, ice-bound emperor and the diminutive, burrow-dwelling little blue encapsulates the incredible adaptive range of the penguin family. Between these two extremes lie a host of other fascinating species. The rockhopper penguins, with their wild, punk rock crests of yellow feathers. The Galapagos penguin, the only species to live north of the equator, surviving in a volcanic landscape thanks to cold, upwelling ocean currents. And the king penguin, a slightly smaller, but no less regal cousin of the emperor. Each species is a unique variation on a successful theme, a living chapter in this grand story of survival. This, then, is our starting point. We've met the bird in the tuxedo, understood its borrowed name, and glimpsed the fundamental blueprint and incredible diversity of its family. Now, we must prepare to dive deeper, to journey back to the very beginning, to a time when their story was just taking shape in the wake of a world-altering catastrophe. To truly understand the penguin, we must leave the familiar world of today behind and venture back across an almost unimaginable gulf of time. Our destination is a planet recovering from one of the greatest catastrophes in its history. Imagine the Earth 66 million years ago. The skies are silent, no longer shadowed by the leathery wings of pterosaurs. The lands are empty of the thunderous footsteps of the great dinosaurs. The Chicxulub asteroid has struck, and the subsequent fire, darkness, and cold have scoured the globe, triggering a mass extinction that wiped out 3/4 of all life. But from this planetary devastation, new opportunities arise. The world is a clean slate. In the vast oceans, the apex predators are gone. The colossal mosasaurs and long-necked plesiosaurs, reptilian giants that had dominated the seas for eons, have vanished forever. This emptiness, this silence in the deep, created a profound ecological vacuum. It was a world waiting for new protagonists, and from the ranks of the survivors, a humble group of birds was poised to step onto this new stage and claim the oceans as their own. The ancestors of penguins were not the flightless swimmers we know. They were birds of the air, likely similar in appearance and lifestyle to modern petrels or albatrosses, belonging to a group that spent their lives wheeling over the open ocean. They were masters of the wind, but they were also tied to the water, resting on its surface and plunging beneath it to snatch fish and squid. We can see a modern echo of this ancestral lifestyle in birds like the common murre or the guillemot. These birds are proficient flyers, but when they hunt, they dive deep underwater, propelling themselves with powerful strokes of their wings. They are, in a sense, living a double life, flying through both air and water. It was from a similar, dual lifestyle ancestor that the penguin lineage began its great pivot. In a world where the oceans were now safer and brimming with food, the evolutionary pressure began to shift. The advantages of staying in the water longer, diving deeper, and chasing prey with greater power began to outweigh the advantages of aerial flight. Slowly, generation by generation, over millions of years, a profound transformation took place. Wings that were built for the subtleties of catching the wind became shorter, flatter, and more powerful, optimized for moving through the far denser medium of water. Bones that had been hollow and light to save weight for flight became solid and dense, providing the necessary ballast for diving. The feathers, once long and elegantly shaped for aerodynamics, became short, stiff, and tightly packed, forming a waterproof coat of unparalleled efficiency. This was not a sudden change, but a gradual commitment, a journey from one element to the other. The oldest fossil evidence we have of this journey was unearthed from 62-million-year-old rock in New Zealand. The creature it belonged to was named Waimanu manaringi. In the Maori language, Waimanu means water bird, a fitting name for this crucial link to the penguin's past. Waimanu was not quite a penguin as we would recognize it. It was more slender. Its beak was longer and more spear-like, and most importantly, its wing bones were not yet the fully fused, rigid flippers of its modern descendants. They still retained a degree of flexibility that hinted at a flying ancestry. While it almost certainly could no longer fly through the air, it was already a dedicated swimmer, an animal that had crossed the threshold and fully committed to a life in the sea. A mere 4 million years after its dinosaur-era predecessors had perished. The discovery of Waimanu opened a window into the dawn of the penguin age, but what followed was even more spectacular. The next 30 million years, during the Paleocene and Eocene epochs, were the golden age of penguins. The Earth was a greenhouse world, far warmer than it is today. The polar regions were free of ice. Antarctica, the continent we now associate with the most extreme cold on the planet, was a temperate landmass covered in lush forests of beech trees and ferns. The surrounding seas were warm and incredibly productive. In this prehistoric paradise, with few marine mammal competitors to speak of, penguins became the dominant coastal predators, and they grew to astonishing sizes. This was the era of the mega penguins, giants that would dwarf their modern relatives. Imagine walking along a misty Eocene shoreline on Seymour Island, off the coast of a green Antarctica. Out of the surf emerges a creature that stands taller than you. This is Anthropornis nordenskioeldi, the human bird. Reaching heights of up to 1.8 meters, or nearly 6 feet, it was a true giant, an imposing figure with a long, powerful beak, perfect for spearing the large fish of those ancient seas. Its flippers were still jointed in a way that suggests a more primitive form, allowing them to be folded back in a way modern penguins cannot. For decades, the scattered bones of Anthropornis and its kin hinted at a lost world of colossal penguins. But new discoveries have continued to expand our sense of wonder. From fossils found in that same region of Antarctica, scientists have identified an even more massive species, Paleeudiptes klekovskii, nicknamed the Colossus penguin. While not quite as tall as Anthropornis, it was far more robust, estimated to have weighed a staggering 115 kilograms, or 250 pounds, more than twice the weight of the largest emperor penguin today. And these giants were not confined to the Antarctic. From New Zealand, the same land that gave us Waimanu, came the discovery of Kumimanu bichei. Its name, fittingly, translates from Maori as monster bird. Living around 55 to 60 million years ago, Kumimanu was another behemoth, standing about 1.7 meters tall and weighing over 100 kilograms. The existence of these massive penguins across the southern hemisphere, from Antarctica to New Zealand, paints a picture of a world where these birds were not just surviving, but thriving on a monumental scale. They were the beneficiaries of a unique window in evolutionary history, occupying a niche that would later be filled by seals, sea lions, and dolphins. But the reign of the giant penguins, like the reign of the dinosaurs before them, could not last forever. The planet is never static, and the warm, stable climate of the Eocene began to change. Around 34 million years ago, a dramatic global cooling event occurred. The Antarctic continent, which had been drifting southwards, became isolated by the formation of the powerful Antarctic circumpolar current. This massive ocean current circled the continent, cutting it off from warmer waters and plunging it into a deep freeze. The temperate forests died out, and the great ice sheets began to form, fundamentally and permanently altering the marine ecosystems. The warm, productive seas that had supported the giant penguins grew cold and were transformed. As if this climate shock wasn't enough, a new wave of marine creatures was evolving and spreading across the oceans. The first toothed whales and the ancestors of modern seals were becoming more common. These new animals were intelligent, fast, and highly efficient predators and competitors. The giant penguins, products of a warmer, less competitive world, found themselves facing a two-pronged assault. Their environment was collapsing, and they were being outcompeted and likely hunted by these new marine mammals. The giants could not adapt quickly enough. Their golden age came to an end, and one by one, these magnificent mega penguins vanished from the world, leaving only their fossilized bones as evidence of their time as rulers of the southern oceans. Their extinction, however, was not the end of the story. It was another turning point. The disappearance of the giants opened up new ecological space for their smaller, more agile cousins. These were the ancestors of the penguins we see today. They were better suited to the colder, more seasonal world that was emerging. Their smaller bodies were more energy efficient, and their refined anatomy made them nimble hunters in the challenging new oceans. From these survivors, the modern lineages of penguins, the crested rockhoppers, the banded Galapagos and Magellanic penguins, and the regal great penguins, the kings and emperors, began to diversify, adapting to fill the coastlines and oceans of the new, colder southern hemisphere. Their story is a powerful testament to the resilience of life, a narrative of loss and renewal, of ancient giants giving way to the modern survivors who carry their legacy. They are the heirs of a 50-million-year dynasty, shaped by planetary catastrophe, a greenhouse paradise, and the coming of the ice. And the result of this epic journey is the incredible biological machine we see today. An animal perfectly engineered for survival at the edge of the world. From the crucible of deep time, forged by extinction and sculpted by ice ages, emerged the modern penguin. The giants of the past were gone, but their descendants who carried on the lineage were masterpieces of biological engineering, each one a living testament to millions of years of refinement. To look at a penguin is to see a creature perfectly and profoundly adapted to a life of extremes, a biological machine where every single component, from the tip of its beak to the web of its feet, has been optimized for survival. Let us now look under the hood of this remarkable survivor and explore the intricate anatomy that allows it to conquer the coldest oceans on Earth. The first and most obvious feature is its coat. A penguin's plumage is no ordinary set of feathers. It is a high-performance, climate-defying shield. The density is staggering, with up to 15 feathers packed into every square centimeter of skin, creating a coat so thick it is practically impenetrable. These feathers are short, broad, and overlap with the precision of roof tiles, creating a seamless outer barrier. But the real secret lies in their structure. Each feather is composed of a stiff main shaft, which provides the tough exterior, and at its base, a soft, downy after feather. This complex, two-part design traps a thick layer of air directly against the penguin's skin. This layer of air, not the feathers themselves, is the primary insulator. It functions exactly like the air inside a diver's dry suit, preventing the frigid water, which can be as cold as -2 degrees Celsius, from ever touching the skin. To maintain this life-saving barrier, penguins are meticulous groomers. Near the base of their tail lies a preen gland, which produces a waxy, waterproof oil. For hours each day, a penguin will painstakingly use its beak to collect this oil and distribute it over every single feather, ensuring each one is perfectly conditioned and aligned. This constant maintenance is absolutely critical. A single misplaced feather or a patch of unoiled plumage could allow water to seep through, compromising the insulating layer of air and leading to a rapid, fatal loss of body heat. The importance of this coat is never more apparent than during the annual molt. Unlike most birds, which shed their feathers a few at a time to maintain their ability to fly, penguins must undergo what is known as a catastrophic molt. Over a period of 2 to 4 weeks, they shed all of their old, worn feathers at once, while a new set grows in beneath. During this time, their waterproofing is gone. They are forced to remain on land, unable to enter the sea to hunt. Before the molt begins, they gorge themselves, building up a thick layer of fat to survive the coming fast. They stand about looking ragged and miserable, vulnerable and shivering. A powerful illustration that without its perfect coat, a penguin is an exile from its own kingdom. Beneath the feathers lies a second line of defense, a thick layer of blubber. This subcutaneous fat provides further insulation and, just as crucially, serves as a vital energy reserve. It is this blubber that fuels them through the long, fasting periods of the breeding season and the enforced starvation of the molt. Yet, for all these incredible adaptations to the cold, penguins often face the opposite problem: overheating. For species living in the temperate climates of South Africa or Australia, or for an Antarctic Adelie penguin marching for miles under a 24-hour summer sun, getting rid of excess body heat is a serious challenge. To cope, they have evolved a suite of clever cooling mechanisms. They can ruffle their feathers, breaking the seal of that insulating air layer and allowing heat to escape. They pant like dogs, and they can hold their flippers away from their bodies, exposing the thinly feathered undersides, which act as natural radiators. Their most sophisticated tool, however, is an elegant piece of plumbing known as countercurrent heat exchange. In their flippers and feet, the arteries carrying warm blood from the body's core are wrapped in a tight web of veins carrying cold blood back from the extremities. As the warm arterial blood flows outwards, its heat radiates and is absorbed by the cold venous blood flowing inwards. This pre-warms the blood returning to the heart, preventing a dangerous drop in core body temperature, while ensuring the blood reaching the feet is just warm enough to prevent frostbite. This system is so efficient, it can be reversed. On a hot day, they can increase blood flow and bypass the exchange, allowing warm blood to rush to their feet and flippers to dump heat into the environment. While the penguin's exterior is a marvel of insulation, its interior is a high-performance engine built for the crushing pressures and oxygen-starved environment of the deep ocean. The diving prowess of a penguin is legendary. The emperor penguin can plunge to depths of over 500 meters, deeper than any other bird, and stay submerged for more than 20 minutes on a single breath. To achieve such feats, they have fundamentally re-engineered their respiratory and circulatory systems. A penguin doesn't store oxygen in its lungs for a deep dive. In fact, it exhales before plunging to reduce its buoyancy and avoid decompression sickness. Instead, it carries its oxygen supply in its blood and muscles. Its bloodstream is enriched with a high concentration of hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen, giving it a much greater blood oxygen capacity than most terrestrial animals. More impressively, its muscles are saturated with myoglobin, a related protein that binds and stores oxygen directly in the tissues. In essence, a penguin's muscles act as their own integrated scuba tanks. Once the dive begins, the penguin's body becomes a model of extreme conservation. Its heart rate slows dramatically in a process called bradycardia, dropping from a resting rate of 60 beats per minute to as few as 5. It also redirects its circulation, shutting off blood flow to non-essential organs like the digestive system and kidneys, and shunting its precious oxygenated blood exclusively to the brain and heart. It is a creature that can literally put most of its body on hold, entering a state of controlled, suspended animation to extend its time in the hunt. To navigate this underwater world, a penguin's senses are also finely tuned. Its eyes are its primary tool for locating prey. The cornea of the eye is unusually flat, which corrects for the different refractive index of water, granting it sharp, clear vision beneath the waves, though this makes it somewhat nearsighted on land. And of course, living a life at sea means drinking seawater. To survive this, penguins possess a biological desalination plant in their heads. A special gland, the supraorbital gland, located just above their eyes, filters excess salt from the bloodstream. It functions like a second, super-efficient kidney, concentrating the salt into a thick, briny fluid that then drips from the tip of its beak. This is why penguins are often seen shaking their heads or appearing to have a runny nose. They are simply expelling the salt from their latest meal. Finally, we return to the penguin's most recognizable trait, its locomotion. The awkward, endearing waddle on land is a direct consequence of its mastery in the water. Its short legs are set very far back on its body, an ideal position for steering while swimming, but a clumsy arrangement for walking. Yet, the waddle itself is a clever energy-saving trick. The side-to-side motion allows the penguin to fall and catch itself with each step, functioning like an inverted pendulum and recovering up to 80% of the energy that would otherwise be wasted. When the terrain allows, they dispense with walking altogether and opt for tobogganing, joyfully sliding on their bellies across snow and ice. But it is in the water that their true grace is unleashed. As they travel over long distances, they will often engage in a behavior called porpoising, leaping out of the water in a shallow arc before diving back in, over and over. This allows them to breathe on the move without sacrificing speed, a fluid, beautiful, and efficient solution to the challenge of being an air-breathing animal in an aquatic world. From its oily, insulating feathers to its salt-filtering glands, from its oxygen-hoarding muscles to its energy-saving waddle, the penguin is a symphony of adaptation. Every part of its being is a finely honed tool, perfected over millions of years for one ultimate purpose: to thrive where others would perish. Now, let us see how this remarkable biological machine navigates the complex and demanding social world it inhabits. The biological machine of the penguin, so perfectly engineered for a solitary life of hunting in the deep ocean, is driven by an instinct that is entirely the opposite: an overwhelming, primal need for community. For most of the year, penguins are wanderers of the open sea, but there comes a time when an ancient call, a rhythm tied to the sun and the seasons, pulls them back from their individual journeys toward a single, specific point on the map. This is the breeding ground, the colony, the place where the next generation must be forged. To approach a large penguin colony is to be assaulted by the senses. First comes the sound, a relentless, deafening cacophony of thousands, sometimes millions, of voices, braying, trumpeting, squawking, a constant wall of noise that blankets the landscape. Then comes the smell, the pungent, acrid aroma of guano, the accumulated waste of the entire city, a scent that can carry for miles on the wind. And finally, there is the sight, a sprawling, chaotic, black and white metropolis stretching as far as the eye can see, a seething mass of life, purpose, and relentless drama. This is the heart of the penguin world, a place of intense social negotiation, of tender courtship and brutal competition, where the entire focus of a species is narrowed to the single, desperate task of continuing its lineage. The return is a spectacle of endurance. Adelie penguins, for instance, after wintering at sea, will travel across more than 100 kilometers of treacherous, shifting sea ice, marching in determined lines back to the snow-free patch of rocky ground where they were born. This powerful instinct to return to one's birthplace is known as philopatry, and it ensures the continuity of the colony generation after generation. As the birds arrive, the empty, silent landscape is transformed into a bustling hub of activity. The first order of business is to find a partner. For many species, like the gentoo or the chinstrap, the bonds they form can be strong, and pairs that successfully raised a chick the previous year will often seek each other out again. Imagine the scene. A female arrives at the site of her old nest. She begins to call, a unique vocal signature that is hers alone. From across the colony, a male hears the call and recognizes it. He calls back, and they navigate the dense crowds, zeroing in on each other's voices until they are finally reunited, engaging in a ritual of deep bowing and mutual preening that reaffirms their bond after months of separation. For the unpaired, the search for a mate is a more public and boisterous affair. A male will claim a small territory, a patch of ground that he deems a suitable place to build a nest. Standing tall upon his chosen spot, he will perform the ecstatic display. He stretches his neck, points his beak to the sky, puffs out his chest, and emits a loud, donkey-like braying call, his flippers held out to his sides. This is both a declaration of ownership and a lonely heart's advertisement, a signal to any passing females that he is available and holds a desirable piece of real estate. A female, assessing his call and the quality of his territory, may show interest. What follows is a delicate dance of courtship. He may bow to her, and she may bow in return. In the case of Adelie and Gentoo penguins, the male will embark on a quest for the perfect pebble. He will search the barren ground for a smooth, suitably sized stone, and, with great ceremony, present it to his chosen female. If she accepts the gift, placing it on the nest site, the bond is sealed. But this courtship is set against a backdrop of constant conflict. Prime nesting real estate is scarce, and males will viciously defend their territories from rivals, engaging in screeching standoffs, flipper-slapping fights, and beak-to-beak combat that can leave both parties bloodied. The theft of nest pebbles is a constant source of neighborhood squabbles, a perpetual soap opera of petty crime and noisy indignation. Once a pair is formed, the focus shifts to building a home. For the pebble-collecting species, this means hundreds of trips to gather stones into a simple, raised mound that will keep their eggs elevated above any potential snowmelt. For others, like the Magellanic penguins of South America, a nest is a burrow dug into soft earth or beneath the roots of a coastal bush, providing shelter from both the hot sun and aerial predators. But the most extraordinary nesting strategy of all is that of the emperor and king penguins, for they build no nest at all. On the barren ice of Antarctica, where not a single stone or twig can be found, they have evolved to become their own nest. The female lays a single precious egg, and immediately, with exquisite care, transfers it to the top of the male's feet. He then covers it with a warm, featherless fold of skin on his lower abdomen called a brood pouch. This pouch, rich with blood vessels, will keep the egg at a constant temperature of around 36 degrees Celsius, even as the Antarctic winter rages around him. The period of incubation is a shared and grueling ordeal. The parent on duty remains on the nest, fasting, often for weeks on end, while its partner undertakes a long and perilous journey to the sea to feed and replenish its energy reserves. This is pushed to the absolute limit by the male emperor penguin. After the female lays the egg, she immediately departs for the sea, leaving him to incubate it alone for over 2 months through the perpetual darkness and blizzards of the Antarctic winter. To survive, the males huddle together in a tight, massive scrum of thousands of individuals. Those on the wind-battered edge of the huddle slowly work their way into the warm, protected center, while those in the center gradually move outwards in a slow, constant, cooperative shuffle that allows the entire group to share the burden of the cold. It is one of the most stunning examples of cooperation in the natural world. The hatching of the chick marks a new phase of frantic activity. The tiny, helpless creature is entirely dependent on its parents for warmth and food. The returning parent brings a belly full of partially digested fish or krill, which it regurgitates directly into the chick's gaping mouth. The parents now operate a relentless shuttle service to the sea, a constant race to bring back enough food for their ravenous offspring. As the chicks grow larger and their demand for food increases, many species employ a clever babysitting strategy. The chicks are gathered together into large groups called creches, watched over by a few unrelated adults. These nurseries provide safety in numbers from predators like skuas and giant petrels, and offer collective warmth, which allows both parents to go to sea and hunt at the same time, doubling the rate of food delivery. The scene of a returning parent is one of controlled chaos. It will stand at the edge of the creche and call for its chick. From within the mass of fluffy bodies, its own chick recognizes the call and responds. The parent then has to run a gauntlet, pursued by a mob of other hopeful, hungry chicks, until it finds its own offspring in the crowd and can finally deliver its hard-won meal. This entire drama plays out under the constant shadow of death. Skuas circle endlessly overhead, waiting for a moment's inattention to snatch an egg or a small chick. On the journey to the sea, the adults face their own predators. A leopard seal, the apex predator of the Antarctic pack ice, may lie in wait at the water's edge, creating a palpable tension as the penguins gather, hesitating to be the first to dive in. In the end, instinct takes over, and they plunge into the water en masse, hoping that speed and numbers will see them through the danger zone. Finally, after months of this relentless effort, the surviving chicks begin to lose their downy coats, replaced by their first sleek, waterproof, juvenile feathers. This is the moment of fledging. They gather at the shoreline, clumsy and uncertain. After a life on land, the sea is an alien world. But the instinct that drove their parents to return and breed now drives them forward. They take their first tentative swim, and soon they are gone, dispersed into the vast ocean to learn the ways of the hunter. The colony quiets down. The adults, emaciated and exhausted, make their own final trips to the sea to fatten up before their molt. The once deafening city falls silent. An empty stage littered with the pebbles and debris of a season's drama, waiting for the sun to turn and for the ancient, irresistible call to life to begin all over again. The mental image of a penguin is inextricably linked to a world of ice. We see them against a stark, white backdrop of windswept snow and towering blue glaciers, a vision shaped by countless documentaries and photographs of the great Antarctic wilderness. While this picture is undeniably true for some of the most famous members of the penguin family, it is a profoundly incomplete portrait. The story of the penguin is not a story of ice, but a story of the ocean. They are creatures not of the pole, but of the cold southern seas, and their remarkable adaptability has allowed them to follow these frigid currents to an astonishing variety of coastlines. Their global distribution shatters the myth of the polar specialist and reveals them to be one of the most geographically adventurous and resilient bird families on the planet. Let us now embark on a journey, a global tour of the penguin world, following these oceanic highways from the frozen heart of Antarctica all the way to the sun-scorched lava fields of the equator. Our voyage begins, as it must, on the great white continent of Antarctica, the coldest, driest, and highest continent on Earth. This is the classic penguin kingdom, an environment of such brutal extremity that life itself seems an act of defiance. Here, two species have made this unforgiving landscape their home. The first is the emperor penguin, the true sovereign of this realm. It is the only bird on the planet that breeds during the crushing depths of the Antarctic winter. Its habitat is not land, but the fast ice, the stable platform of frozen ocean that clings to the continent's edge through the darkest months. Imagine a world where the sun vanishes for 4 months, where temperatures drop to levels that can freeze flesh in seconds, and where katabatic winds pour off the polar plateau at over 100 miles per hour. This is the nursery of the emperor, a place so hostile that its entire life cycle is a precisely timed race against the seasons, dependent entirely on the freezing and eventual breakup of its sea ice platform. They are creatures of a purely elemental world of ice, wind, and darkness. Sharing the continent is the smaller, indefatigable Adelie penguin. If the emperor is the stoic monarch, the Adelie is the plucky colonist. They are birds of the brief, intense Antarctic summer. Their habitat is not the sea ice, but the tiny fraction of the continent, less than 2%, that is ice-free rock. After wintering in the northern pack ice, they undertake a heroic migration south, marching across vast plains of frozen ocean to reach these rocky coastal outcrops. Here, they build their simple pebble nests on ground stained dark by generations of guano, against a backdrop of colossal icebergs calving from the glaciers behind them. Their world is one of 24-hour daylight, of frantic activity, and the constant threat of predatory skuas from above and leopard seals from the sea below. For the Adelie, Antarctica is a summer home, a place of rock and relentless sun, to be abandoned before the darkness and the deep freeze of winter return. Leaving the continent behind, our journey takes us north into the formidable Southern Ocean, to the sub-Antarctic islands. These are the wind-swept jewels of the high latitudes, places like South Georgia, the Falkland Islands, and Macquarie Island. This is a different world from Antarctica. It is brutally cold and relentlessly windy, but it is not a polar desert. The land is free of ice in the summer and covered in surprisingly lush vegetation, most notably the giant tussock grasses that form dense, towering fields. This is the crossroads of the penguin world, home to the greatest diversity of species. Here we find the magnificent king penguin, the emperor's slightly smaller and more colorful cousin. Their colonies are breathtaking in scale. On the plains of South Georgia, cities of over 250,000 pairs stretch for miles, a shimmering sea of silver gray, black, and brilliant orange. Because their breeding cycle takes over a year to complete, their colonies are occupied year-round. A constant hub of activity with distinct zones of elegant adults, fluffy, brown, oakum boy chicks, and molting individuals. Living alongside them are the charismatic crested penguins, like the macaroni and the rockhopper. With their wild crests of yellow feathers, they are the punks of the penguin world. Their habitat is the steep, rocky cliffs and treacherous slopes of the islands. They are master climbers, somehow navigating near vertical ascents from the pounding surf to their nests high up in the tussock grass. A daily commute of incredible difficulty and determination. From these wild southern islands, we make a great leap north, following the cold currents as they branch off towards the great continents of the southern hemisphere. Here, the image of the ice-bound penguin dissolves completely. On the arid, scrub-covered coasts of Patagonia in Argentina and Chile, we find the Magellanic penguin. Their environment is a semi-desert, a world of dust and hardy shrubs under a hot sun. To survive, they have become expert excavators, digging deep burrows into the soft earth to shield their eggs and chicks from the heat and from aerial predators. They are penguins of the soil, not the snow. Further up the coast of South America, in the deserts of Peru and Chile, lives the Humboldt penguin. Its existence here is made possible by the powerful Humboldt Current, a deep, cold, nutrient-rich oceanic river flowing north from Antarctica. This current turns a coastal desert into a marine paradise, supporting the vast shoals of anchovies on which the penguins depend. They live on rocky shores and guano-caked islands, a testament to the fact that where the cold water flows, penguins can follow, no matter how alien the surrounding land may be. The same story plays out on the other side of the Atlantic. The cold Benguela Current sweeps up the western coast of Africa, allowing the African penguin to thrive on the shores of South Africa and Namibia. At Boulders Beach, near Cape Town, they have famously established a colony in the middle of a human suburb, nesting under houses and boardwalks, their donkey-like braying a familiar sound to the local residents. This is perhaps the most striking example of a penguin living in a temperate, almost Mediterranean climate, sharing its habitat directly with humanity. Across the Indian Ocean, in Australia and New Zealand, we find the smallest of the family, the little blue penguin. Its world is one of sandy beaches, rocky shores, and even coastal forests, where it nests in burrows, sea caves, and under man-made structures. And in the remote, rain-soaked temperate rainforests of New Zealand's Fiordland, we find perhaps the most unusual habitat of all, home to the Fiordland penguin. This is a shy, secretive bird that nests not on an open beach, but deep in the gloom of the forest, amongst moss-covered logs, ferns, and the tangled roots of ancient trees. It is a penguin of the forest, a creature that seems to belong to a fairy tale. Our final stop is the most surprising of all. Our journey takes us to the Galapagos Islands, a scattering of volcanic rocks lying directly on the Earth's equator. This sun-baked, tropical environment seems the most un-penguin-like place imaginable. Yet here, against all odds, lives the Galapagos penguin, the only species found north of the equator. Their survival is an evolutionary miracle made possible by another cold, deep ocean current, the Cromwell Current, that collides with the western islands and pushes cold, nutrient-rich water to the surface. This creates a local microenvironment cool enough to support them. They are the ultimate adapters, living at the absolute thermal limit for their kind. They are small to better shed heat, and they spend their days hunting in the cool water or sheltering in the shadows of black volcanic rock, panting and holding out their flippers to cool down under the fierce equatorial sun. Their existence here is the final, definitive proof that the penguin's story is tied not to latitude or to climate, but to the life-giving chill of the ocean's currents. From the blizzard-swept ice of Antarctica to the rainforests of New Zealand and the equatorial lava flows of the Galapagos, the map of the penguin world is a map of these cold water highways. They are the threads that connect all these diverse habitats, the lifelines that have allowed this remarkable family of birds to colonize the southern hemisphere and become true global citizens of the sea. For millions of years, the story of the penguin unfolded in a world that held no knowledge of humanity. Their epic of evolution, their colonization of the southern oceans, and the intricate dramas of their colonial lives were governed by the slow, immense forces of geology, climate, and the eternal rhythm of the sea. They were masters of their own domain. But in the grand scheme of planetary time, a new force was rising, a species of intelligent, tool-wielding ape that was beginning to extend its reach to every corner of the globe. This is the story of what happened when the world of penguins and the world of humans finally collided. It is a chronicle of a relationship that has been, by turns, sustainable, brutal, and adoring. A complicated history that has now arrived at a critical juncture, placing the fate of this ancient bird family squarely in our hands. The first encounters were not those of European sailors, but of the indigenous peoples who had long inhabited the coastlines of the southern hemisphere. In Patagonia, the Yaghan people navigated the channels of Tierra del Fuego, sharing the shores with Magellanic penguins. For the Maori of New Zealand, the little blue penguin, or korora, was a familiar presence, its return to the coast a marker of the seasons. In South Africa, the Khoisan peoples knew the calls of the African penguin. For these cultures, the penguin was not an alien curiosity. It was a part of the intricate web of life that sustained them. They were hunted, certainly, but this was a hunt born of necessity and respect. The birds provided meat for sustenance. Their tough skins could be fashioned into pouches or clothing, and their oil was a source of fuel for light and heat. It was a relationship of subsistence, one in which the penguin was a valued resource, taken as part of a natural cycle that had persisted for generations without threatening the viability of the colonies themselves. This ancient balance was irrevocably shattered with the dawn of the age of exploration. When European ships first rounded the great southern capes in the 15th and 16th centuries, their crews were weary, starved, and desperate for fresh provisions. The penguins they encountered were a godsend. To men like those on Ferdinand Magellan's voyage, these strange, upright, flightless birds seemed almost comically unafraid. Having evolved in a world largely free of terrestrial predators, they had no instinct to flee from the strange, two-legged figures who walked amongst them. They were, in the words of one early chronicler, so fat and good to eat. The colonies became living larders, convenient and seemingly inexhaustible sources of meat and eggs that saved countless sailors from the ravages of scurvy and starvation. For the next few centuries, this was the primary nature of the relationship. The penguin as a mobile food source. But as the Industrial Revolution gathered pace in the Northern Hemisphere, the demand for resources grew, and the exploitation of penguins shifted from opportunistic provisioning to a brutal, industrial scale. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the sub-Antarctic islands became the bloody workshops of sealers and whalers. Having decimated the populations of seals and whales, they turned their attention to the penguins. On islands like South Georgia and Macquarie, vast colonies of king and royal penguins were harvested not for meat, but for their thick layer of blubber. The process was horrifyingly efficient. The birds were herded by the tens of thousands into crude pens, clubbed to death, and then loaded into enormous cast iron vessels called trypots. Here, they were boiled down en masse to render their bodies into oil, a foul-smelling but valuable commodity that was shipped back to Europe and America to light lamps and lubricate the machines of a new industrial age. Entire colonies, which had taken centuries to grow, were wiped out in a single season. It wasn't just their bodies that were exploited. Their reproductive cycle was also targeted. On the islands off the coast of South Africa, the eggs of the African penguin were considered a delicacy. An egging industry flourished, collecting hundreds of thousands of eggs each year, pushing the species into a catastrophic decline. Meanwhile, on the Guano Islands off the coast of Peru, the nesting grounds of the Humboldt penguin were being destroyed for a different reason. The accumulated droppings of seabirds, known as guano, had become one of the world's most valuable fertilizers. Fleets of ships descended on the islands, and laborers scraped the land bare, destroying the burrows that the penguins depended on to protect their young from the harsh sun, leaving the colonies exposed and vulnerable. The perception of the penguin began to shift during the heroic age of Antarctic exploration in the early 20th century. Men like Robert Falcon Scott, Ernest Shackleton, and Roald Amundsen ventured into the frozen South, and in their journals and letters home, they described the animals they encountered. For the first time, the penguin was being observed not as a resource, but as a fellow survivor in an extreme environment. The scientists and photographers on these expeditions, men like Herbert Ponting with Scott and Frank Hurley with Shackleton, brought back the first intimate, moving images of penguins in their natural habitat. The world saw the dedication of the emperor penguin parent, the charming antics of the pebble-stealing adelies, and their seemingly fearless curiosity. These portrayals, especially in Apsley Cherry Garrard's poignant memoir, the worst journey in the world transformed the penguin's image. No longer just a fat bird to be boiled for oil, it became a character, a symbol of courage and endurance, an animal to be admired and even loved. This newfound affection blossomed in the 20th and 21st centuries as the penguin became a bona fide cultural icon. Its formal, anthropomorphic appearance made it a perfect character for branding. From the dignified logo of penguin books to countless advertisements, it waddled into the hearts of children through animated characters like Pingu and the all-singing, all-dancing cast of Happy Feet. And with the release of documentary films like the Academy Award-winning March of the Penguins, audiences around the world were captivated by the epic life and death drama of their existence. This immense popularity has made the penguin a powerful flagship species for conservation. They are the beloved, recognizable face of the remote and fragile Southern Ocean ecosystem, capable of inspiring public support and driving conservation action in a way that less charismatic species, like Antarctic krill, simply cannot. Yet, ironically, as our affection for the penguin has grown, the threats we pose to them have become more insidious and far-reaching. The direct, bloody exploitation of the past has largely ceased, but it has been replaced by indirect, global pressures that may prove even more devastating. The single greatest threat is climate change. For ice-dependent species like the Adelie and the Emperor, a warming world is an existential crisis. The reduction of sea ice robs them of their breeding platforms and foraging grounds. Warming ocean waters are disrupting the entire marine food web, forcing the krill and fish that penguins depend on to migrate to deeper, colder waters, meaning parents must travel further and work harder to feed their chicks. At the same time, industrial fishing fleets are in direct competition with penguins for these same food sources. The massive-scale harvesting of krill in the Southern Ocean, and of sardines and anchovies off the coasts of Africa and South America, can deplete the food available to colonies, leading to starvation and breeding failure. And everywhere, the oceans are filling with our waste. A catastrophic oil spill can instantly destroy a penguin's waterproofing and condemn it to a slow death from hypothermia, while the pervasive threat of plastic pollution leads to ingestion and entanglement. Our relationship with the penguin has come full circle. We have gone from living alongside them to hunting them, to boiling them, to loving them. Now, we find ourselves in the most profound stage of our connection yet. We have become the unwitting and often unwilling architects of their world. Our global activities now dictate the temperature of their water, the abundance of their food, and the very stability of the ground beneath their feet. The next chapter in our long, complicated relationship is yet to be written, and its outcome will depend entirely on our willingness to assume the immense responsibility we now hold. We have journeyed with the penguin across a vast expanse of time and space. We have seen its ancestors rise from the ashes of a fallen world to become giants of the ancient seas. We have marveled at the intricate biological machine that allows it to fly through the water and endure the harshest climates on Earth. We have witnessed the intense drama of its colonial life and traveled with it to the astonishingly diverse habitats it calls home. And finally, we have confronted the complicated, often destructive legacy of our own species' relationship with this remarkable bird. Now, we arrive at the final chapter of this story, a chapter that is being written today, in real time, in laboratories, on remote islands, and in the halls of international policy. This is the story of the fight for the penguin's future, a desperate and inspiring struggle to ensure that its incredible 50-million-year saga does not end with us. The stark reality is that the penguin world is in peril. Of the roughly 18 recognized species, the majority are experiencing population declines, and many are now officially listed as vulnerable or endangered. The threats they face are global, systemic, and driven by human activity. But where there is a crisis, there are also heroes. And the front lines of penguin conservation are manned by dedicated scientists who are using every tool at their disposal to understand and protect these birds. Modern technology has opened an unprecedented window into their secret oceanic lives. Researchers can now fit penguins with tiny, glue-on satellite transmitters, sophisticated devices that track their movements after they leave the colony. For the first time, we can follow a single emperor penguin as it travels hundreds of kilometers across the sea ice and dives to astonishing depths in search of food, its entire journey painted as a moving line on a computer screen thousands of miles away. This data is invaluable, revealing the critical foraging grounds and marine hotspots that must be protected if the penguins are to feed their young successfully. From the intimate scale of a single bird's journey, science has also scaled up to a planetary perspective. In one of the most remarkable innovations in wildlife monitoring, researchers now use high-resolution satellite imagery to find and count penguin colonies from space. An emperor penguin colony, with its thousands of tightly packed bodies, leaves a distinct brownish guano stain on the pristine white of the Antarctic ice. These stains are visible to satellites orbiting hundreds of kilometers above the Earth. By scanning the entire coastline of Antarctica, scientists have been able to discover previously unknown colonies and conduct a continent-wide census without ever setting foot on the ice or disturbing a single bird. This remote sensing technology, combined with drones that can conduct precise photographic surveys and artificial intelligence that can automate the counting of thousands of individuals from a single image, is giving us the most accurate picture yet of how these populations are faring in a rapidly changing world. This deeper understanding is fueling direct conservation action on the ground. Perhaps the single most important tool for protecting penguins at sea is the establishment of marine protected areas, or MPAs. These are essentially national parks in the ocean, vast zones where commercial activities like industrial fishing are restricted or banned entirely. The creation of the Ross Sea MPA in Antarctica, a protected area larger than France, Germany, and Spain combined, was a landmark achievement in international cooperation, a direct result of decades of scientific research identifying the region as a critical ecosystem for Adelie and emperor penguins. By safeguarding the food web from the bottom up, these MPAs create sanctuaries where penguins and other marine life can thrive without direct competition from human fishing fleets. The ongoing campaign to create a network of such protected areas around Antarctica is one of the most ambitious and important conservation initiatives of our time. In other parts of the world, conservation is a more hands-on affair. For the African penguin, whose populations have plummeted in recent decades, the historical damage of the guano mining industry has left them with a shortage of safe nesting sites. In response, conservationists have designed and deployed thousands of artificial nest boxes, simple ceramic or fiberglass burrows that offer the same protection from the sun and predators as the guano caves their ancestors once used. It is a simple, effective intervention that has been shown to significantly boost the number of chicks that survive to fledge. In Australia and New Zealand, the threat to little blue penguins often comes from introduced predators like stoats, ferrets, and domestic dogs. Here, conservation work involves building predator-proof fences around critical nesting areas and running extensive trapping programs. And when disaster strikes, in the form of an oil spill, rescue and rehabilitation centers like Sandcob in South Africa spring into action. Their world-renowned expertise in de-oiling penguins is a painstaking process of washing, rehydrating, and rehabilitating each individual bird, a powerful and moving symbol of our capacity for care in the face of the damage we can cause. Yet, for all their vital importance, these local interventions, the nest boxes, the protected zones, the rehabilitation centers, are ultimately just treating the symptoms of a much larger global disease. The greatest single threat to the future of all penguin species is the one that cannot be solved with a fence or a protected bay. It is the overarching, ever-accelerating crisis of climate change. A warming planet is fundamentally rewriting the rules of survival for these birds, which are so exquisitely adapted to the cold. The melting of the sea ice, the warming of the ocean currents, the acidification of the seawater that threatens the tiny shelled creatures at the base of the food web. These are existential threats that originate thousands of miles away from the penguins' homes. The fate of an emperor penguin chick huddling on the Antarctic ice is now directly connected to the energy policies, transportation choices, and consumption habits of people in cities all over the world. The penguin has become the definitive canary in the global coal mine. Its struggle for survival is a direct reflection of the health of our planet's oceans and climate system. And so, our story comes to a close. We have followed the penguin on its incredible 50-million-year odyssey, a journey from a lost, warm world to the modern age of ice, a journey that has now led it into the uncertain horizon of the Anthropocene, the age of humans. This small, flightless bird, clad in its formal black and white, has endured more than we can possibly imagine. It has survived asteroid impacts, dramatic shifts in planetary climate, and the rise and fall of countless other species. It is the ultimate survivor, a symbol of resilience, of adaptation, and of the profound strength that can be found in community. The challenges it faces now are immense. The shadow of our impact looms large over the ice, the coasts, and the oceans it calls home. But there is hope. It is found in the tireless work of the scientists tracking them from space, in the volunteers who guard their nests, in the diplomats who fight for their protection in international forums, and in the growing global awareness that the health of our planet is inextricably linked to the fate of creatures like the penguin. The great question that remains is whether this remarkable bird, which has survived so much, can also survive us. Its future is now our responsibility, and its story has become a part of our own.